Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Brought to you once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea. And today on Patriot Radio, Trump's cabinet takes shape. Another pogrom in Europe. And what's happening, really happening in England on the ground with our guest, Mark Sutherland. We are now on Patriot TV. We welcome all of the Patriot TV viewers. 2 to 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Saturday and Sunday, you can find Patriot Radio. And here at Patriot Radio, we are giving you information before everyone else so that you can be prepared for the times ahead. Indeed, the times that are already upon us. We were made for this, but no fear. Now, you can follow us on Telegram for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news. Patriot Radio US. You can also subscribe to us on Rumble, Patriot Radio US on Rumble. And I want to just say that with the election of President Trump, huge step forward for America, but we are not over yet. Pray in reformation. In other words, pray in the change. Pray in the restoration. Pray in the exposing of evil and that it's held accountable. We need to keep praying it in. Now, the strategy to get Trump elected ran under the radar screen, but it was essentially to target men and get men out to vote. And that means that men, we need to continue in our leadership roles going into the future so that this country continues for the next generation. So please take this seriously, praying in, but also moving to action. There are plenty of things that can be done in our local communities. We need fathers to take leadership roles again. And that brings us to our encouraging word from the Word today. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 13. Therefore, take up the full armor of God so that you will be able to resist on the evil day, and having done everything to stand firm. Stand firm. Now, Trump's been elected, but there is a long time between here and Inauguration Day. The left has tried to ramp up, but more importantly, the deep state is ramping up. And we're seeing some picks that have cast a little bit of a shadow on the initial wave of appointments. But be realistic about some of this stuff. And also, it's our job to point out where people may have been deep state all along. For example, if you're a graduate of the Aspen Institute, you're a globalist, and it would behoove those in Congress to ask some pretty hard questions of Marco Rubio, for example. There's some other people, too, that have been appointed that are absolutely fantastic. But ultimately, for all of us, it's not going to be one man that turns America around. It's going to be all of us. All of us. Every single patriot, every single Christian. It's going to be our responsibility. And the way we do that is to stand firm and resist the evil. If we see the evil, expose it, resist it, which means take a public stand and proclamation against it and watch it flee. So, receive your new mission today. Resist evil and stand firm. Because while Trump has been elected, there is a lot of evil that needs to be rooted out here in the United States of America. And by the way, there are tons of countries from around the world that are waiting for America to show everyone how. So let's lead and serve by example. That brings us now to your daily intelligence brief coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
Well, they're just getting weirder. But if you didn't know this, your DNA is probably already in a database somewhere. And I'm not just talking veterans who have served in our armed forces and served for this country. I'm also talking about 23andMe and some other places where people have voluntarily given their database or given DNA to their databases. Why are they collecting this? Well, because they're creating a digital you. And part of that digital you is your DNA, which some of these wannabe technocrats will use to discriminate against you based on certain markers. Yeah. There's more to finding our ancestry than our DNA. Don't give it up. If you don't need to, why help these people? And that brings us now to the China front. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered mass production of suicide attack drones, following suit with many other countries. The United States is also ramping up production because this is the way of war in the future. But just more tension building up there in the South China Sea. Freedom Edge 2 kicks off near South Korea. South Korea, Japan, and the United States have launched a 3-day joint exercise, which includes the USS George Washington aircraft carrier. The exercise, dubbed Freedom Edge, will involve fighter jets from 3 countries, Marine patrol aircraft, and multiple naval vessels. The primary focus of these exercises will be air defense, anti-submarine operations, ballistic missile defense, anti-piracy, cyber training, and more. The reason these things are happening is because here probably in the next, the next 6 months, we're going to see further provocations by China in the South China Sea, even though Trump is president. The Philippines is launching some patrol craft as well to help stand off against China and China's wrong claims in the South China Sea. Taiwan and the Philippines are poised also to obtain advanced U.S. weapons under the Trump administration. All of this at the same time, we are rebuilding some of our island air bases that we used during World War II. We're ramping up in the South China Sea. War what could potentially be a world war. Now, this can all be prevented with a Trump administration who is arming up Taiwan, arming up the Philippines, because that will act as one of the greatest deterrents. Also arming up Japan. It will act as one of the greatest deterrents. And in these island hopping campaigns, man-portable anti-aircraft, man-portable anti-ship, and man-portable anti-armor weapons become a premium. So under the Trump administration, expect a massive ramp-up of these man-portable systems, because also there needs to be a decentralization of defense here in the United States and a return to a civil defense structure. What does that mean? That means National Guard armories in major metropolitan areas. It means that we have a civil defense structure similar to what John F. Kennedy actually advocated, which was one of the greatest deterrence strategies against the Soviets. And that is that National Guard armories, recruiting at the local level, the diffusion of key weapon systems locally actually will help deter any country who's thinking about attacking the United States. It's a centralization that has caused the problem. And that brings us now to the Middle East front. CIA official arrested for document leak related to Israel. He was arrested on Tuesday in Cambodia. Will appear in Guam today. And this just highlights that we need a massive overhaul of our counterintelligence apparatus here in the United States of America. I've been advocating this for a long time, along with many others. But it is broken. The fact that these people take so long to be caught instead of preempted, it's just broken. Also, Elon Musk met with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations on Monday in a New York private session as they discussed a way to diffuse tensions between Iran and the United States. Very interesting how all of a sudden Qatar's like, well, Hamas, you got to leave. You got to go. Iran's wanting to talk now, holding off on a retaliatory attack. It's amazing what strength does in checking our adversaries. Also, President-elect Donald Trump's first promise to Israel, quote, on my first day in office, I will cancel all restrictions and delays on the transfer of weapons and combat equipment, end quote. Iran, Qatar, Hamas, and other terror entities are quietly underwriting South Africa's effort to prosecute Israel at the International Court of Justice. Research exposes problematic political financial backing of this ICJ case. I expect this case actually to be dropped is shortly before or shortly after Trump is inaugurated. You're seeing huge backpedaling by Qatar, and Hamas has essentially become a non-entity. Also, and just talking quickly about the Middle East, because Iran is not going to strike, it's very unlikely that Israel will strike ahead of time, although it is very clear that Iran right now knows its nuclear sites are in jeopardy, is trying to negotiate to save them, because that would be the first target should Iran do something under a Trump administration. And that brings us now to the Russia front. Coming to us out of Spain, more flooding out of Spain. Incredible. I don't know how they're dealing with this, but it is very, very difficult for the people in Spain right now. PM Sanchez there is facing a political crisis because he's done little to help. I'd also expect that he's not going to last. PM Sanchez, is not going to last much longer. Also, Dutch police arrest a major supplier of Channel migrant boats, according to Insider Paper. So it looks like Europe's beginning to close their borders down too. How about that? I think everybody sees the writing on the wall. We'll get to it here in a little bit, but some of Trump's picks are very clearly intended to send a message about closing the southern border. In fact, Texas, here in the last few days, has ramped up protection on the southern border because they want to stop any surge before the Trump administration is inaugurated. Also in Europe, Jewish people are forced to hide their symbols to minimize the likelihood of being attacked. So just like we saw an attempted pogrom in France after this soccer game, they failed to do that. We saw the ramping up in Amsterdam of what was an actual pogrom where they went and intentionally tracked down, hunted down people of Jewish descent. Incredible. So what that means is that Europe is a tinderbox right now. And while the attempt today in France failed, I expect more of this to ramp up in the future. And they may try to do this here in the United States, but they're failing miserably to get any traction. And I'll talk about that on the national front. Also, regarding Ukraine, land for security deal, and Ukraine gains support. Amazing how Trump coming in changes everybody's mind. Quote, I think everybody has more or less reached this conclusion. It's hard to say publicly because it would be a way of saying we are going to reward aggression, said the former French ambassador to the U.S., talking to the Washington Post. That brings us now to the national front. We need to make counterintelligence great again. I could not agree more. It means we need to be looking at every leak, every failed op, and determining the true cause, which also means accountability for people who are conducting espionage against this country in positions of power in the former administration. J. Michael Waller brings up the great point that word is that the National Archives and Records Administration has been working hard to purge federal records and make it look all clean. The number 2 man, Chief Records Officer Lawrence Brewer, took a demotion, transferred to DOJ to direct the Office of Records Management Policy, places we've never heard of. what they're trying to do with this is they're trying to make it so that all of the things they did, they can't be held accountable. By the way, civil service laws, I don't think they apply when people are engaged in this kind of behavior, just as a little reminder. After the break, we're going to continue with some of the things that are happening in the Trump administration. And also, we're going to talk about a few very important breakthroughs and some encouraging signs here in the United States.
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy, and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. It takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to the Patriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
Old Glory Bank, put your money in a place that you can trust. Now, moving on to Trump's new cabinet picks. His cabinet's taking shape with a huge announcement today. Trump has nominated RFK Jr. to be the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. And you watch what's about to happen there, because you want to talk about wailing and gnashing of teeth. There's going to be accountability for the records that have not been turned over regarding COVID. There's going to be accountability for politicizing medical science. There's going to be accountability for collusion between Big Pharma and the political machine. It's going to be incredible to see what happens with this going forward. But we need to say this ahead of time. The senators better be listening to America. They better be listening to America and not stall any of these appointments. Which brings us to the cabinet picks that are already there. I want to talk about a couple really big ones. The U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Elise Stefanik, so very, very pro-Israel, somebody that really needs to be there. Administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin. Now, it's interesting because he actually believed in global warming, so it's going to be a bigger issue than what he's kind of talking about now, which is increasing our power generation capability, which is absolutely 100% right. But where does he stand on global warming and the deconstruction of policies that are so destructive to U.S. manufacturing? Because Trump is all about friendshoring and bringing it back to the United States or to very close allies. What does that look like for here? I mean, if we want to see jobs return to the United States, the EPA has got, these regulations have got to go. Also, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Director of the CIA John Ratcliffe. I'm very skeptical about that one, by the way. Pete Hegseth. Now, a born-again Christian who understands the communist threat and understands the jihadi threat. Amazing pick there. But what's even more interesting about that pick is that he is unashamed, and the left is already wailing about it. So that probably means he's really good. Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Tulsi Gabbard for DNI. Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Again, they're wailing about this one, and they're saying that he's not going to be confirmed by the Senate. But would he be one of the most effective attorneys general in the history of the United States? 100%. So great to see that pick. And then also a couple other ones that have come in. You know, Mike Huckabee ambassador to Israel. Great pick there. Former representative to Georgia's 9th District and Air Force Colonel Doug Collins, going to be his secretary for Veterans Affairs. He's also a chaplain. And American patriot Sergio Gore is named the head of presidential personnel. This is huge, bigger than people understand. Whoever personnel's policy and whoever's in charge of that, that's going to be really key. So General Flynn bringing up a great point that there needs to be some accountability for the espionage that happened in the Biden administration, where allied intelligence agencies and the Five Eyes network were spying on Americans to get around U.S. laws, something that's going to be key. Also, Elon Musk is threatening to fund primary challengers of any House Republican who does not fall in line with Trump's agenda. That's putting his money where his mouth is. Amazing. And probably one of the brightest spots so far, the Department of Government Accountability, DOGE, has been created, and Elon Musk saying 99 federal agencies is more than enough. That would be a reduction of over 75% of the federal government. Amen. Hallelujah. Let's see them and help them get it done. Also, just in, an FBI arrested a man plotting a 9/11 style terror attack in Houston. 28-year-old Anas Saeed. He was plotting this terror attack, and it was revealed that Saeed supported ISIS and doing violent attacks in their name. So again, the days of evil, we need to be really careful. The FBI also seized Polymarket CEO's phone after Trump win. This does look and smacks like political retaliation after Polymarket's very accurate predictions. And as the Trump team starts taking names, Pentagon officials scramble to cover up their roles in politicizing the military and woke critical theory, as J. Michael Walrus calls out. This needs to be key. These investigations need to be key. Now, here's good news. Antifa protest didn't gain any traction in Seattle and was shut down almost immediately. And just coming in, the CDC actually planned quarantine camps in the United States. Vindicated? Yes, I am. Again, praise God. I talked about this here in Washington. Seattle was named as one of the cities. Their intent was, in fact, to create quarantine camps, and the plan's authors were unnamed but included 26 footnotes. This was completely official. The document was only removed on or about March 26, 2023. Amazing. Well, I'm glad that all of you caught that stuff and supported me in that during that time of calling these things out. And that, right now, brings us to our guest today, Mark Sutherland, on what is going on in Europe. But first, a quick word from our sponsors.
Patriot TV fans, feel like there's nothing on the radio for like-minded, intelligent people like yourself? Well, great news. Now you can stream Patriot TV on TuneIn during your drive to or from work. Whether you're stuck in traffic or cruising down the highway, you can catch every conversation from your favorite show hosts right in your car. No more mindless jibber-jabber. Tune in 24/7 on the road, at the gym, or wherever you are. Download the free TuneIn app now on Apple, Android, or your computer and never miss a beat. Patriot TV, now on TuneIn.
Now we have it. Kingdom Crunch.
It's important to start breakfast off with a power-packed punch. You want a complete amino acid score, good protein. If you turn the label over and look at the back of the box, there is no added sugars in either one of these flavors, either peanut butter or acai bowl.
Peanut butter has 11 grams of high-quality protein. Acai bowl has 8. Peanut butter has 11 grams of carbohydrate, acai bowl 12, and both of them have good solid fat content at 6 grams. Very filling, very healthy.
You will be fueling yourself with high quality fuel, starting off the day right. You can even use Kingdom Crunch as a snack in the middle of the day if you just have a craving and you want to eat something that is good for you. It has a crunch and doesn't have a lot of calories.
There you go. Diabetic friendly, keto friendly, paleo friendly, Kingdom Crunch, and
child friendly.
And our guest today is Mark Sutherland, producer, filmmaker, activist for liberty, and author of Solutions for the End Times, but also was part of the great project, the First Amendment Film Festival. Mark, it's always great to have you on Patriot Radio. Welcome back.
Matt, thank you so much. So good to be with you again, my friend, I'm speaking to you this time from my side of the pond, where last time I spoke to you, I was in your great nation. So thank you, sir.
Well, you've been doing a lot of great work, but many Americans asking the question, what is going on in Europe right now? You've got riots in Lisbon, Portugal that really have gone underreported. You've got Iran closing consulates. You've got Green Party members saying that they should lock down their borders in Germany now. People saying and military leaders saying that people should store up food and water for 72 hours. Up in the Nordic countries, they're saying for 2 weeks. What's going on in Europe right now?
It's interesting what you say about the Nordic countries with the advice in regard to preparation. That had been going on for a number of weeks. I think that discussion had been happening a couple of months ago. There is a lot going on in Europe, as you are fully aware. There's the Ukraine-Russian war that is continuing. The other interesting thing in regard to Spain, of course, there has been these floods not far from Barcelona. In Barcelona, I believe there's been this meeting to have a discussion about two-state solution in Israel, which no, you and I as Bible-believing Christians and support of Israel and have a biblical understanding of the prophetic importance of that, that is a no-no. That's not something that people should be doing. And of course, Spain has... we have to go back to the Spanish Inquisition. All of this, if we say that we're in the biggest spiritual battle of our lifetime, Ephesians 6 talks about principalities and powers. There's this principality rising up again in regard to anti-Semitism, and out of Spain with their left of center government mindedness, there is again this anti-Israel, anti-Semitism going on. Europe, well, it seems that Germany has suddenly going, and other parts of Europe going, oh no, we need to close our borders. Where in fact, what they've been trying to do was to close the borders in such a way to mitigate, of course, the immigration, but to mitigate it in such a way where certain immigration from certain countries will continue and be fed and distributed amongst the countries of Europe. You know as well as I do that we are not stopping the boats that are coming over to Dover. It's continued. We've had, I know this is all relative in regard to your great nation, when you figures, people talk about 11 million people coming over the Mexican border.
It's incredible.
J.J. Carroll's and Ryan Matter's film, What is Treason, say that it's far higher than that, and in far higher than 11 million. We have had 30,000 illegal immigrants coming over this year. Now, to put it in a context, as I constantly say, our country fits into Texas 2.5 times. You have got a major invasion going on, financed by Homeland Security, led by Maya Caucus and all the other idiots, and you've got that invasion going on. We have an invasion going on. The Prime Minister Keir Starmer, before coming into power on the 4th of July, said we're going to smash the gangs. Well, that hasn't happened. The immigration is continuing, and it's costing us millions and millions of pounds, and is slowly is more than busting our economy, and on the sort of heels of COVID, which well and truly busted our economy. So I think within Europe, there is a power play going on, because when you've got the FFD in Germany, which is a populist political group that is turning around and going, we've got to put Germany first, we've got to control our borders, etc., etc. Now, the other issue with this, Matt, of course, we've got Germany as a mindset where they're all growing green, we're cutting down on coal-fired power stations and all the whole climate change nonsense. In this country, we've now just totally got rid of our steel industry because we're all going that our CO2 levels are going through the roof. The fact that we're just about be lucky as a country to even make even 2% of an impact. And as you know, CO2 is needed because otherwise trees can't take it in and then they can't produce oxygen, and you and I need that. So we are now on climate change stupidity, green net zero, on full speed. Our electricity is the highest, I think, in the world, etc. We, as I said, we're getting rid of coal-fired power stations and all this kind of thing. This is completely mad. And then wanting to rely on far more on solar panels and etc. Now, here's the big one for us as a nation. So yesterday we had the budget, e.g., the government lays out its 5-year plan in regard to how money is going to be spent in this nation. Well, we're virtually using 100% of the GDP at the moment just to pay debts. And Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, the woman that had the picture now in her office of one of the founding members of the British Communist Party, which is
let's bring that up right now, so that everybody can see this. I mean, we got to understand this, that she's putting up on the wall a communist who spied for the Soviets, undermined Great Britain, but putting up on the wall is kind of a hero. Check this out.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Absolutely. Now, she took down the picture of Nigel Lawson, the previous very well-known, very successful Chancellor in the 80s, Chancellor of the Exchequer. She took that down. But, Matt, this is really, really important. And suddenly we're sort of going a slightly new direction, if you say, about what's happening in Europe. Basically, I would say within Europe, the whole idea is this government wants to get us back in line with Europe, that Brexit, and I'm not saying that it ever really happened. I think many of us over here can agree it never really happened. And totally reversing that, as it was reminded me today that as soon as the populist vote about us leaving the EU, remember it's unelected 26 commissioners run the European Parliament, the EU. The key is that Keir Starmer, who's now our Prime Minister, after that vote, then took it upon him to start talking to Barnier in regard to us, who were negotiating, Theresa May, Ollie Robbins, etc., negotiating to get out. And he would then start having conversations as well, because they want to realign us with Europe. Starmer has done whatever he can to undermine that. Now, this is what's really important. When you're putting pictures like that on the wall, you are giving a virtual signal, and we have to go back. We are now run by a man that, as far as I'm concerned, is a Fabian on steroids, a communist. He is a member, if my research and reading a very, very interesting article printed 4 years ago by a reporter called Paul Neggs, I think is his name. He wrote in a magazine called Labour Heartland, and he talks about the fact that Keir Starmer is a member of the Trilateral Commission. So you and I will.
I want you to say that again so everybody catches that, Mark. He's a member of what?
The Trilateral Commission.
So a globalist.
A globalist, absolutely. Total globalist, and let's bear that in mind. Hold that thought. A few weeks ago, there was a picture of him with Rachel Reeves, with our Chancellor of the Exchequer, walking down the corridor of power, where Keir Starmer was at the left-hand side of the picture, and Bill Gates was on the right-hand side of the picture. Now, as other people that are clever than I have just pointed out, we have just had a budget, and within that budget is an attack in regard to inheritance. If you are a farmer, of how you then pass your land to your next of kin if you pass away. So there's an attack on that in regard to inheritance and death duties. Now, if you follow that through, you can then argue that, as someone has said, that within 2 generations, you completely killed, maybe well before that, completely killed the farming industry in this country, because death duties will be so much to pay for, that it's not going to be easy for you to pass on your land to your family. There's death duties to pay on that. So in other words, farmers at the moment, I've seen them up and down this country. I've interviewed people who are telling me that this is happening within their constituencies, as in members of parliament constituencies, that many fields are being turned into solar panel fields. Okay, that's where they're getting money from. It seemed more cost effective to them to do that financially. Now with a budget, it's about, let's get rid of farmland. So if anyone, we have now, I don't think for you and I, even though I have to pinch myself on a regular occasion, we have not been in any doubt over the last few years how much the globalists have been in regard to attacking us in so many different ways. Bill Gates, of course, is one. So, as I think is one of the biggest, if not the biggest landowner of farmland in America. I could be wrong, but getting up there, he owns a heck of a lot of land. So there he is being seen having a conversation with our now Prime Minister. These people, as I say, are communists. If he's a member of the Trilateral Commission, he's a member of a globalist body. And as I just reiterate again, there was a very, very good article written in Labour Heartlands about this, I think by a gentleman called Paul Naggs. He has talked about it on 2 occasions, even recently. He's someone I want to try and track down. But the key is no one's talking about that. Now, last September, Keir Starmer was in Canada having a meeting with Justin Trudeau, Jacinda Ardern, and Jacinda Ardern has just made a dame in the order of the British dameness. So she's been made a dame by Prince William. She is on an advisory board of Prince William's charity, I think. I could go on. The connecting the dots, as our dear friend Dan Happel says, is absolutely true. The problem is, for a number of us, we find it so hard to get our head around this so fast because Matt, it is sped up so much. And I think the last time we spoke, I reminded you, and I'm reminded, and this is why it's so important that people, of course, vote. And last time, our last election on the 4th of July this year, basically 40% of people that were entitled to vote decided not to vote. This government don't have a mandate. Only 1 in 5 people actually voted for them. So I don't think they're in a very, very strong position. But on the other hand, with our first past the post system, they have more MPs than anyone in the House, have a very, very strong majority. But I believe, even though some of us were shouting about it, they have not been honest. Again, Matt, and you will be perfectly aware of this on your side of the pond. If you take the Hunter Biden laptop and you take the 51 agencies that turned around and went, oh, no, headed by Blinken, I believe, Antony Blinken, who's going around trying to tell Israel what to do every 5 minutes. Then within a year and a half, in the 2 years, they said, oh, no, it does exist. The Biden laptop does exist. In other words, there's been huge manipulation by our press in not holding the now Prime Minister, but then leader of the opposition, to account. But as someone I know once said, that politics is theatre for ugly people. The thing is what's gone on over here is that the baton has been passed on. You've constantly said to me, what about these Tories, these Conservatives? Well, they're not conservative. They've never been conservative, except 1 or 2 within the party. And over the last 14 years, I could argue, especially under the Cameron government, full of Liberal Democrats, that within the so-called Conservatives party, it's a huge church. And many of them are they're Liberals. So that is then played out. That has played out, and it's as though Sunak has then passed the baton on to Starmer, who we are now, it seems, on this fund. Unless God intervenes and gives us a period of grace, we are now on a fast track to then being more in line with the leg of global governance, which is the EU. We are now being ruled by people that do not believe in this nation. The tax rises that they promised not to put up, the tax rises have gone up. There is a huge attack on the self-employed and people running small businesses. As you and I know, and you are more than aware of this, that your sort of government employees, we call them the civil service, have ballooned in America. In many ways, it's totally against, the way you think.
It is against. It is.
Totally. And we now have a civil service that's ballooned, but we have a civil service, as you have constantly talked about, in regard to how Mao, the insurrection, the taking over of each department of the levers of power, with a sort of quiet revolution. Well, that is where we've reached. We see that we are now run by left-wing thinking everywhere.
It sounds like we are in a battle, the United Kingdom and the United States, for Western civilization. When we come back from the break, Mark Sutherland, we're going to be talking about terror attacks potentially in Europe before the end of the year, what happens here in the United States before the end of the year, and the First Amendment Film Festival. Stay tuned.
Attention patriotic businesses. Do you want to see your sales skyrocket by selling your products or services to like-minded patriots? Well, if you're an advertiser who embodies the timeless principles of freedom, liberty, and patriotism, look no further than Patriot TV. Our viewers are responsive, economically active patriots who are committed to supporting businesses like yours that align with their values. For more information on advertising on America's new network of proud American businesses, email us at advertise@patriot.tv.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's filling up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with Mark Sutherland, marksutherland.org, the author of, well, actually I should say co-author of Solutions for the End Times, and also part of the First Amendment Film Festival. So Mark, we were talking briefly before in the last segment about what's going on in Europe. What is the possibility now? Because I mean, when you have the Green Party saying we should close the borders in Germany, I mean, that really caught my attention. Is there a possibility for an October 7th style attack in Europe?
There is always the possibility of that. And let's put it within a framework where I just get my wording right. There is always a possibility of that. If people are coming into countries, coming into Europe, they are not vetted. You do not know where they have come from. You do not know what their ideology is, and you do not know what their belief system is. And then if they are following the belief system of Islamism, then of course that could break out. That could break out. I do not want to see that, but there have been, of course, attacks, as you are fully aware. So this potentially could be a reality, and the very important thing is that we don't use hyperbole or dramatization to say, oh yes, this could happen. We have to look at the facts, and if you have got facts where in this country, within the UK, we've got 70,000 illegal immigrants up and down this country in hotels. If there are also many illegal immigrants, etc., coming into other countries who are not vetted, who are unchecked, then Matt, you ask a very, very sensible question.
So let's talk then about the United States, because if it happens in Europe, or it could happen in Europe, and there have been blade attacks in England here recently, and we're seeing attacks in the United States that are glossed over as lone wolf or, there was just something that happened in Chicago.
Absolutely.
Yelling something about Akbar, and the police are still wondering what the motive is, right? What happens before the end of the year here in the United States in this post-election atmosphere?
Well, it's very interesting. We must, by the end of this piece, we must talk about what's happened in Southport in the UK and the developments of that, because this is all relevant. JJ Carroll and others have raised the alarm and saying, and you have constantly done this, how many members of the CCP military are coming over the border? How many of other political persuaded people along those lines? What about all the people coming from other parts of South America and other West to do harm to the US? That is a possibility. And the issue is, of course, between the gap of electing a new president and the official installation after the Jan 6 and after you've had the electoral college confirmation and then going to January the 20th is a big gap, Matt. And the last thing I want to see is any violence on the streets of the US or any violence anywhere, period. But you know as well as I do, with Antifa and all the rest, but also with people coming over the border and even some of the people that they've arrested and all the rest, this is a huge concern because people then can cause chaos within your country.
So what has happened in the southern part of the United Kingdom? And I know it's happening in other places too, but let's just talk about it. I mean, there are some reports that we get here in the United States, but it is very difficult to find out what is actually happening unless we're talking with somebody like you that loves freedom and liberty and understands the times.
Well, there has been, I mean, the head of GCHQ, MI6, a few weeks ago was giving a warning about who they are then having to follow in regard to potential terrorist outbreaks, terrorist attacks. They are then, on high alert following various people. Now, we had an incident a few months ago. We had riots after an incident in July. In Southport, where a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 7-year-old girl were just disgustingly stabbed to death. Other people in the class injured. The two teachers that were taking this dance class were also injured too. Now, people thought they had intuition of what this might have been, where a then 17-year-old goes in and stabs people. The intuition, and there are certain things I will say, certain things I won't say. The intuition, sadly, has been proven to be right. There was a gap, a vacuum gap, in regard to the police. The authorities would not release information. They shutting that information down. And now, this particular individual, who's now 18, has now been charged under the Terrorism Act in regard to having ricin, or the capability of making ricin, which is, as you know, is a pretty dangerous poison, and also for having access to Al-Qaeda terrorist manual.
That's right.
They have then charged him under the Terrorism Act in regard to that. Now, the important thing that is going on the outskirts of the mainstream media, and particularly independently over here, is that the Prime Minister of this country, Keir Starmer, the Home Secretary of this country, Yvette Cooper, would have known fairly immediately, once this young man had been arrested, once they'd gone into his house, they would have found these items fairly quickly.
Exactly.
And they would have known that, but they didn't talk about that. And sadly, we had riots on the streets in the UK, and I am not excusing the violence and what took place whatsoever. But you could argue that if the information had come out, then, and that vacuum had been filled by the information, that maybe those riots would not have taken place. More important, which is very, very important. And also, they then locked up, various people were arrested and locked up for tweeting, for saying comments. And some of those comments, sadly, were a little bit stupid, but on the one hand, but on the other hand, there was an emotional reaction to that. Now,
of course, because it looked like
absolutely
a cover up. So, Mark, in the last couple minutes that we have left, tell everyone quickly about the First Amendment Film Festival.
That's very kind of you. So, First Amendment Film Festival, here we are. A number of weeks ago in September 13th, 14th, and 15th, over a weekend, the First Amendment Film Festival was held. There were 12 films. 4 of them were documentaries from our dear friend David Summerall, StopHate.com, explaining what happened on Jan 6. It was very much a Jan 6 event. There were a number of J6s there that have been incarcerated and released. And the whole thing about the 1A Film Festival, First Amendment, is to raise the profile on the First Amendment, to get fantastic films out, like What is Treason by J.J. Carroll, Mike Smith's Into the Light, and others, and also Professor David Clements, who was there, who was then fired because he refused to wear a mask, and then questioning the whole COVID situation, and then is explaining to people about what is going on within the political system in America and the voting machines and how things are changed, etc. David was there. Very, very powerful. So, as I say, the whole thing was sponsored by the American Gulag Chronicles. Here's the book. I asked people to go out and buy it, etc., because that supports the J6 prisoners. There is a product coming out within very, very shortly that people can then buy. Go on 1afilmfest.com, 1afilmfest.com, buy this, and to show people and to inform people. This is about giving you a tool, an educational tool into your hands, where you can inform people, where you and I have been called conspiracy theorists, where you and I have been told this didn't happen for Jan 6, it never happened on that day, blah, blah, blah. Then all of that can actually be rebuffed, refuted very clearly. So for, I think, $25, you can download, have access to these 12 films, and 2 of them are mine, which I'm very proud to be part of that, Between Lambs and Lions and the Irish Echo, because it's about getting the information out there. And I just ask America to kindly buy that, have watch parties, invite friends round, and see people, to get them to have the scales pulled from their eyes, so that we can educate people and spread the word and discuss and inform people about where we are at. So, Matt, that is what the festival was about. I was very privileged to help bring that together. And I really, really ask that Americans will wake up and engage with what is going on around them. We are in a very, 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 within the world, a very, very serious situation. But God is on the throne. He wants us to play all our part. We just, and I say this to myself, we just have to find out what that part is, and get on with it.
Well, Mark, you're playing a very big part, and I want to thank you for helping to wake up all of our listeners and viewers. Really appreciate everything you're doing from across the pond. Mark Sutherland, marksutherland.org. Thanks for joining me on Patriot Radio. We love you, brother. Keep up the fight.
Thank you.
Also, 1afilmfestival.com. And in the What You Can Do segment today is very simple. Go to 1afilmfestival.com. Check out these 12 films. Share them with your friends and family so it helps wake them up, especially in the run-up to the new year and Inauguration Day. This is Matt Shea. Thank you so much for joining me today on Patriot Radio. May God bless all of you. This generation truly is the greatest one. The awakening is here. Keep up the fight.